So I'm thinking that, yeah, if they had it on the other corner, maybe that would have been something that would come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into detail like you say, but the property is small.
Right.
It's very small and very limiting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And add the Brookshire's
yeah.
restrictions on top of that, and it's even a bigger challenge for us. You know, I don't really see the land going back to anything except some kind of development, right? I mean, it's going to be retail. Would not want a. Well, I say we. I'm speaking to. From what I've heard from people, like a Jiffy Lube or something like that. That's you know. Everyone would want just the picturesque little perfect restaurant or what have you, but the size and shape of that land is
very limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this conversation highlights the broader issue of McClininchism. Just a few years ago, it was a small town, small city. It's growing. County's growing significantly. Mm-hmm. And the importance of this panel committee and how it advises and interacts with planning and zoning, Board of Adjustments, and more importantly, the City Council. I think, my opinion is it has been slow in the upstart, right, which development will occur. Land exists, and the land is owned, and the corridors are going to be developed in terms of throughput, 205 expansion, et cetera. And,
right.
So the committee itself, and I'll use the word committee, even though it was brought together as a panel, and candidly, I don't significantly understand the difference between the two. But
regardless of
I think we've been slow in formulating and not serving the City Council well, not serving the city as well as it needs to. And part of that is just structure. It's a structural, in my mind, it's a structural question. So I sat down, wrote out some thoughts. These are my thoughts only. I didn't run them by anybody to get any feedback. I just sat down and thought, okay, so as we structure the panel, so I think that's one of our first, as we recreate this body, the first thing we ought to do is structurally understand what we're doing, how we're set up and organized in that relationship. I mean, as the work Jim had led with developing this set of slides, right? It was a great first step to get a vision down and some objectives, goals and objectives. Mm-hmm. So now how do you turn this into something more beneficial to the council so they ultimately make those decisions necessary? It doesn't really matter who's mayor, who's the council, right? This is about
this is bigger than
giving back, specific guidance and thoughts. And I was the Dollar General as an example, the current proposal is an example. There will be others, right, that will come forward. And have watched council struggle. I mean, they're struggling in that it's a non-paid position, right? There's no city staff is limited in size. So as you start to go through and try to generate those questions, that's where I think we can do a much better job giving that advice.
Sure. On
what would make sense beyond the broad statements of what's a desirable kind of business to have here or not.
Right.
I think we all are focused on the same objective, right? I mean, in terms of keeping what we envision in our mind, keeping the McClininchism sort of small, rural look and feel, right? All those catchphrases. But the problem is we're going to have a 6-lane road that's going to become a significant thoroughfare between 30 and 20 and arguably further north. a lot of traffic going up and down there. And with traffic comes desire for economic development. It's going to be driven not as much by what the city wants as much as people seeing an opportunity to be in a free market society.
Right.
An opportunity to, do something. So we want to make sure we're very, because I agree, I mean, I was against Dollar General, but thinking more about it, certainly we're not against the concept of having a small grocery store here, I don't think.
Right.
So,
conceptually.
I mean, I think about Dollar General as I think about Walmart or neighborhood Walmart or, as large big box stores, right? Big national organizations. I mean, but you see what's happening up in Heath with Tom Thumb.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
It's
yeah.
having
That
positive
whole
benefits.
area.
Anyway, so I just put some thoughts down. These are just my thoughts. I'll hand these out. Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to read this out loud to us, or if you were going to...
No, I'm
Yeah, I've tried that before.
not going to read it out loud. I'll let
Everybody goes to
you can
sleep.
read through it. I mean, it's just sums up the history as I understand it. But it gets down to, the shortfalls of, we have to set up the authorities associated with what we want this, and I just call it a committee just for simplicity, right? An economic development committee. Procedurally, how it will work, what our standing is, that standing relative to, as a standing city committee relative to others, and complying with Texas Open Meeting Act obligations, who our membership is. I mean, right now we have membership. Some of us have been, I think, approved by city council by vote. Others I don't think have. So it's just useful to go back. I like to have city council, thumbprint on it.
You want to revisit that resolution that established the committee?
Yeah, exactly. That would be one of the actions. What our relationship would be relative to planning and zoning, because that's one of in discussions we've had with other cities. That's one of the considerations, is how those two entities work together. I mean, not clearly need to, right? Hand in glove, where the lanes of what the lanes are, what our structure is, how much training. I think there's some training that needs to be done here, so we're, legally compliant and also technically proficient, as technically proficient as we can be. Structuring meetings, and then, sort of attendance metrics, all like that. So we have people who, because if we're going to put time and energy individually and as a group, I think we need to make sure everybody's all in, committed in. So anyway, that's just all my thought, and I attach the same thing as I think what Jim did was a really great first step.
Absolutely.
So just
I appreciate that. That's all great input.
read it. So one of the actions I'd like to see us come out of here, we don't have to do this tonight specifically unless we want to, is come forward with a specific recommendation as a body on structure and what those procedures will be, and then how it should be appropriately captured in city ordinance and code. And I looked to Lisa for that, but I mean, do you have an ordinance to establish it? I mean, that's a question.
This committee or something?
Yeah, for this.
I mean, we do yes, we do. The old one.
Well, it was the old one was just done as basically, was it a resolution?
Make it a
You want
formal.
to make it more of a permanent committee rather than like
Well,
an ad hoc?
I think if it's, because that way my opinion is if it's a permanent committee, it has body and has importance, and, again, because
Agenda, notice it.
all those things. And then just,
Because it's not an economic development, it's certainly a finite thing.
well, the one, and I know Valerie's been the key in keeping us thinking about what the vision is, right? What's the vision we want for this body, or for the city?
Right.
And Jim is, we've discussed that as well. What vision do you want? What kind of businesses do you want? What kind of character?
Right.
Well, for economic development, that has to be made in concert with housing, roads, where the city's going. I mean, we could be, completely off, right? Maybe you don't want to build this airplane while you're trying to fly it. I think you want to get it designed the best you can before you take it off. And obviously my concern is to make sure we get ahead of the 205 expansion, because once 205 occurs, it could be this, it's the stimulus that's going to open up a lot of interest in this part of, the southern part of the county.
And even though we're a couple of years out on that, I mean, the development can come sooner even if the construction doesn't. I mean, the plans for that development.
Well, and I think this is going to get to highlight the importance of it, right? So as we're setting up the committee, 205 expands. So let's just say hypothetically, business X comes into 205 by 50. And construction starts, right? Construction can have a very corrosive impact on businesses. They can actually drive them out of business.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight was, 60% of all new businesses fail within the first year. That's in a perfect environment. But if you had a bunch of new businesses that were starting up while they were having construction on 205, the number would probably increase dramatically. So the problem with that is that once a business fails, especially if it's not like in a consolidated area, if a business fails out there, other people are less likely to want to try to start in that area because they think, well, they failed, there must be something wrong with that location. And so that becomes a problem. So, going back to when we first started the original panel, we had come up with some things that we thought were really important, which was to look at our comprehensive building plan. Because right now, the way that our comprehensive building plan and the current city commercial zoning, people can pretty much build wherever they want under commercial zoning the way that it's established. And if that's not what the city desires anymore, that we probably ought to bring something to the city council and look at the potential of, looking at the comprehensive building plan and deciding, okay, what is it that the city really wants to have? And I think that's what I thought we were doing in the past, was we were working towards that kind of idea, that we were going to provide something to the city council so they can make a decision on it, provide guidance to the planning and zoning and to the Board of Adjustments, and then take a look at the, what is the direction that the city wants to go in. And a survey is a perfect thing to do too, is you go out and ask people where would they like to have businesses at. And we talked about several different things, 550 and 205, here where the city hall is at, or other locations. And the question is, what's our citizens want?
Exactly. Because we're not going to figure that out.
No.
Definitively sitting in this room.
Sure.
No, I agree. I'm in citizen engagement.
Right.
Right, whether it's a survey, whether it's town hall, whether it's both, right? All of those ways you get feedback from the citizens and get feedback from council. Right. And then, because I know planning and zoning, I think, struggles with the same sort of issue sometimes is, what's the desires? You're a liar that you need the citizens to come tell you.
And you need a broad, I always kind of would like to have a broader view of what the citizens want other than the one or two that show up.
Right.
Well,
you had the past survey
That was done in 1819, that I requested this the other day, and
215 pages, though. That was pretty large. I assume that might be a start point for us to get a conception of what the citizens want, and then beyond that, we can supplement that with other surveys if we want to be more
like
detailed.
Right.
But that might be a little bit of a start point. Though, from the responses that I saw, they were very limiting in terms of the number that people actually went online. As an example, there were 1,000 people that went online, but the number that actually finished off the survey was very small. So there's a little bit of bias there that I was, I had to put in reserve.
And I think we can, just with good survey design and short, quick bits that really hit
very clear, concise, detailed, and this yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, kind of thing. I've done surveys in the past, and you can ask these nebulous questions and get nebulous responses, and it doesn't lead you anywhere.
think that's something, do we have an account already with SurveyMonkey or something? If not, I mean, there's not
We used
a
to
big expense.
Question Pro for our
Okay,
survey engine.
right, same type of thing. Okay.
So on that theme, one of the things that comes to my mind is that, you know, 205 was going to take out our current fire station, and TxDOT was going to give us funding to go build a new fire station. Have we established where the new fire station is going to go?
I'm not sure. I mean, they're,
Because that's something I think that ought to be in this economic plan as well, because I think that's going to be a substantial investment for our city, which could also be part of where we think we ought to have our commercial area as well.
right. I mean, there are some areas that we've established that are, you know, I mean, just like over here, just right across the parking lot.
And we talked about
few
that.
others
Is that the county still talking about putting that middle school right down the right, elementary
Yeah.
school? You know, that was a concern, because anybody who's driven down the Horizon during the school days, you know that you can't get by there.
So when was the last time you talked to the school district about that?
They were in here 6 months.
Yeah, less than a
About the
year
middle
ago.
school, the middle school itself.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have any plans to build it, just, is it middle school or elementary school?
And down the streets of middle school.
The-
Okay.
Yeah.
That, yeah, at the time, they didn't have any plans or commitment to build it. But it's still on
They purchased the land.
Right.
I wouldn't.
there. And
That's-
they got
that's
the
the
Because I
sewer.
saw that sign there, and I saw Dr. V at another meeting, and, you know, and I mentioned that piece of land, and he goes, I didn't even know we owned it.
Yeah. That's, they buy and hold land sometimes, resell it. I think it's actually for sale. I mean, if you were willing to go in and make the offer to the school district, they would consider it. As opposed to, I mean, because they're, you know, the elementary schools have been rolling out.
Yeah.
I think that's, if we're going to get a school here, we'll probably get an elementary school before we
Well,
get.
they're still in Sonoma Verde, it's supposed to have the elementary school within
Yeah.
Sonoma Verde.
Mhm.
But kind of 10,000-foot view, is it going to be the kind of goal, focus of this committee is to do that kind of research and gather information so that we can give this data to city council for them to make?
I think the data
Better
has to be
decisions.
the starting point, you know, because that's how it transcends any specific council or mayor or anything like that, is what the people want now. And then that could be reevaluated every 5 years, 3 years, or it could be ongoing, quite frankly. I mean, if you have
And I think that's what we were on
Yeah.
track to do that last year, and then when the panel kind of just got sidetracked, but we were doing some of that. Melanie had done a terrific job of providing a lot of that information, so I think that's, you know, we're keen to want to do that. You know, that's why we talked about kind of setting up a structure. What are the things we need to do first? Because you can't do some of the other things until you knock out some of the top ones, and so that's what we were kind of trying to focus on. We had created our, you know, the vision statement, we had created some goals and objectives, and we were like, okay, what are the things that we need to do first? And we never really kind of fulfilled any of that. And, you know, it's great to talk about what we want to do, but unless we set up the right structure, we're never going to be able to do it.
Right. Give me a task and I will do it.
Well, that's like, and so in that paper I mean, there's a specific structure of setting this committee up, creating subcommittees. The subcommittees, right, have basically have two specific tasks. One is the vision, land use, right, planning or zoning that goes with that. The other side of that is they call it business development side of it, which is the specific business specific, right? So Dan wants to build business A, right? The city council, it comes to the city, comes to Lisa. Lisa would have that subcommittee as a resource tool that she could then be involved in the meetings, right, with Dan on business A, and then help develop a thought process there, so that giving that advice back to planning and zoning or to the city council. Because we're not, I mean, as we agreed before, right, we're not an action body. I mean, we don't vote, and our vote becomes implementation, right? All implementation is done through the city council.
Yeah, we're just providing them
We
with.
provide the input. So that would be the, you know, so bad Dan's business A, hypothetical business A, we'd be able to go back and then help shape that discussion. Because I think, you know, go back to your Dollar General comment you were making. On the surface, there was an emotional reaction to that because of the type of business it is. Is there an alternative, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, I don't think we disagree with the idea of a grocery store. The question would be the type, who would own it, and because that thought had come up, and this is just. Other cities have implemented a methodology of dealing in businesses like Dollar General is to require so much fresh food per square foot.
I think Dallas is instituting that now.
Yeah, I was reading that was
In Fort Worth, they're asking for 10% of the
Fort
floor
Worth
space.
was what triggered me to look at the research, but there was another city, it was a city in the upper Midwest that had used its ordinances, right, to help shape the type of business.
Right.
Now, I mean, there's an argument, you can make the argument about getting into, is it overly directed? I mean, there's a balance there, that's a whole separate discussion, but the point being, I think, you know, there's ways to help drive the desirable outcome.
Right. Yeah, and that's another discussion, I mean, just made me think of as well, is how big is economic development for this town? I mean, how much offset do we want? We want low taxes, we know that. We want some services. Are we good with what we have for forever? And we'll just keep the rooftops low and that kind of thing? Or do we want to offset some of those costs with economic development? And there's pluses and minuses to both, you know? But it depends what the vision for the city, and that's the bigger picture of what we are 20 years from now. A bedroom community to Rockwall, or our own self-sufficient little town that has a lot of those services for themselves. Water comes into it as well, you know, that's...
And I wasn't going to bring this up, but I was telling Tommy, because of the type of business Tommy owns, there's a digital transformation that's taking place in the United States right now. It's going to impact every industry that exists. It's already impacting, when you see the Amazon effect just on groceries. So our natural tendency is to think about businesses relative to brick and mortar. You know where I'm going, how much brick and mortar is going to exist in 20 years.
Yeah, but we've been predicting the divide for 20 years.
No, I understand. I mean, there's going to be some brick and mortar that
right.
exists in 20 years. The question is, what kind of brick and mortar will exist in 20 years? You know, you would have 30 years ago, if we were having a discussion about brewing beer, the notion of a microbrewery would have been laughed at. And along came Samuel Adams, and along came the whole revolution.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm very careful about, you know, saying what will be or what will not.
Sure. Yeah.
Because transformation and disruption are just inherent as we move forward. So that's a dynamic that needs to be considered here, because we were talking about infrastructure. You know, part of the infrastructure, I think, is that digital providers, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you entice that to come in?
Yeah, and the other part for the economic development too, I think, is the quality of life aspect to it. You know, there's we use wide open spaces and horses and all that as an example, but really what it boils down to is we want to maintain that quality of life, and that's difficult to do with, like you said, free market, private landowners. You can't, unless we go buy all the land and we pay to feed the horses or whatever, we're going to have to work with developers and landowners and make it fit and make all of our lives collectively as good as possible, and have this pocket of sanity and comfort in the middle of what probably will be development right up to our doors
It
on
will
all
be.
sides.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's gonna come
Everyone
right
else
up
is
to
going
our
to cram
edges.
it in.
Right. Well, and it'll be close by, but it doesn't have to be within
Right.
us. There's also preservation groups and other people that we can explore, you know, to keep our
Mhm.
our preserve here, our retreat,
Yeah,
you know. So there's not just one answer,
right.
right? And we can
Absolutely.
explore things that you might not have thought of to begin with, right?
Mhm.
Like we had talked about our floodplains and watersheds and storage and
Yeah,
wetlands and things like that. You can make it a destination, a place, a preserve, somewhere that people want to come to and certain businesses fit into, right? And what the citizens want to
right.
keep us, because I mean, anybody can do high density and pollution, right? Is that what we want? And we're gonna have a lot of traffic coming through, and how are we gonna offset all that pollution and all that traffic?
Right.
So that's something else to consider with the widening
Mhm.
as well. With TxDOT, they have something called a green ribbon, but you have to kind of get to them beforehand and sort of plan it out, get your trees and what you want along the side of the road when they expand us.
Yeah, there's a set amount.
You've already indicated interest in that.
Yeah. So,
One of the things, Laura, was what you were saying exactly, that a lot of times we think about economic development, how our citizens are going to desire, but there's also, we have a large volume of traffic that goes up and down 205. That's also something we'd like to be able to get some of that revenue, as those people that don't live in the city, get them to stop and spend dollars here and pay taxes into our city. So that's another, yeah, so that would be something else we need to look at. So because this is, it could be a destination location, exactly what Millie's talking about. We do have a lot of wetlands that you can't necessarily build on those, but could you put like parks or riding trails through them or something like that? Could you put that adjacent to like a shopping center where people come and then they can go for a walk or different things like that? So I think we need to have a broader concept of what we think that we want our city to be that could help up the people who live in the city, but also create a desire for people to come. Like when we talked about that, the vineyard that's right there off of 205, the potential to have, if they have, you know, maybe have a restaurant across the street, people go to the vineyard and then they go across the street and then they have the local wines are available and you go eat dinner and you get people from Heath and people from Rockwall and around the areas who have, you know, pretty substantial wherewithal, come over here and spend some dollars in our city. Those are the kind of things I think we should also be, not just about economic development that the people inside the city are interested in, but what can we bring to attract people from outside of our city to come
And
here.
I think one thing we've all heard loud and clear from people here is that we do want to have that small town feel. And actually other towns around us building up and cramming in houses and all that could make what we do here even more attractive to them. I mean, if it's the closest place you can go and get that feeling.
Yeah, to get away
you know.
from,
Yeah, get
from your life, yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, people come in, spend their money, and they go home.
Just like we do in Rockwall.
Right.
We go to them, give them our tax dollars and
That's
then come
exactly
home.
right. Yes. So it's an exciting time for us, but it's not without challenges and missed opportunities if we don't figure it out.
it is an exciting time, and there's a lot of possibilities that we can put up there for the citizens to kind of say, I like that, I don't like that, or, you know.
I do know from just talking, anecdotal, it is not statistically sound, but just talking to a lot of people about it, like a city square type development, people like that.
Do they like that?
Yeah,
'Cause
I mean,
we-
more than just a destination. So the example is always that I've used, if you just took the harbor and you shrunk it down and made it fit to us, to what we would want. You go there and you shop and it's walkable, and you see your neighbors there and it feels small town, rather than driving to one place, going inside, getting back in your car, driving a quarter mile down the road, getting out of your car. You know, you never really see people, that type of thing. So,
Right, yeah.
and the walkability, not cost money though. It's one of those things, the infrastructure, whether that's water, sewer, walking trails, that type of thing. You know, you get developers to pay for that if we can, but some of it will ultimately be city maintained. So now you're talking about more staff. And economic development hopefully will offset anything like that, you know, if we're doing it right. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense.
We had, and Jim will recognize this, coming from California, there was a town that was a couple miles away from us, and over in San Marcos where they had Restaurant Row, and they just had a number of various restaurants, and they were centered within a certain area there, and very, very successful. Few people in it from everywhere, and just very, very popular, but it was thought out and planned, and ultimately it was a destination place during the daytime for business people, and at night for people who want to recreate and do other things.
Right.
So something along those lines could be very successful in conjunction. I'm thinking that in conjunction with, you know, your park outlay, you know, with a lot of lighting, maybe a small amphitheater, things of that sort. You know, I mean, we can go beyond Dollar General, we go beyond,
Yeah, I would actually, if we don't get it, incorporate these kinds of thoughts, you end up with what you get.
it can be,
Yeah,
it'll
which
end
will
up
be
being a
a lot,
hodgepodge
which will be a
of
straight
developments
dollar
that
check.
don't.
Then we're responding instead of
Yeah.
planning,
Right,
I mean,
or reacting.
we can be proactive in this sense.
Exactly.
Addison has that as well, Beltline.
I'm
All
sure it's
restaurants down
It's
there.
been replicated
Big business
elsewhere.
district there,
That's the one
yeah.
that came to mind for me.
Yeah, yeah, and we talked about before, like Waters Creek has something with that, with the water and they'll have concerts in the middle, but it's all retail around it, and then they actually have a second floor, I think, with offices or possibly flats, I'm not sure
Yeah,
which,
I've
but
seen that a lot more.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really nicely planned, and you have a place where you can just go and, I mean, even have a picnic on the grass there. And it's all done by the developers, though, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's usually right off of a thoroughfare.
And they're the ones who understand that they bring the infrastructure. you
Yeah.
know?
So it
Well,
sounds
it's
to
in
me
their
like-
interest too to bring the infrastructure because that attracts more customers to the, brings in more revenue.
But for them to be willing to spend that kind of money, you've got to have a friendly environment. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're not just going to march in here and say, oh yeah, we want to.
But they have to have
So
skill
that,
in
how
it,
do you
too,
get
know?
there
This
where
developer,
we control them? You
Well,
know?
that goes back to the comprehensive building plan,
Yeah.
and setting it up in the right structure so that,
Yeah.
that it's enticing to them, that, oh, I can come in there.
It's
I can do-"
enticing to
Right.
them,
Take the money
exactly.
to it.
Because right now, the way that our comprehensive building plan, with the way that all of
Sure,
it
yeah.
is laid out, there's no enticement for, maybe somebody wants to come build, a small strip mall for several, businesses, but that's not gonna entice somebody to create a
Right.
large infrastructure.
Oh, and you have to, the other, great discussion. One of the big issues is that you have to come to grips with is, it all takes land.
Yeah.
So it starts with the landowner.
Yeah.
So the landowner has to buy into the vision. They have to be a, not just on board, but a cheerleader for that development, that type of development. Forget the developer that's behind it.
Right.
As we, so that's part of this is getting our own citizenry that owns the land actively engaged so that they have a shared vision of how they want the land developed.
Yeah.
You're
See
talking
dollar
about
signs.
land that's not for sale already.
Well, I mean, we have a lot of undeveloped land that's
Yeah.
around.
Right.
550, 205, others. I mean, they're big, large amounts of land that are just undeveloped, so they're owned. Somebody owns them. So what are they thinking, right? What do they want to do? Where's that land going? Because it's a lot easier to develop that green space if they're committed to having green space. It's that simple. I mean, you've already solved half the problem, right? And yeah, you've already solved part of the challenge.
Yeah, and you can put restrictions, I guess, for lack of that word, that if they develop this much square footage of concrete, they have to have this much, not just the
Yeah.
detention ponds,
Yeah.
but actually this much green space, just like we asked for neighborhoods, right? So, and have that be interlocking. So that-
So didn't we hire a new company to manage for the city? And that would be something, I think that what we really ought to do too is to have them look at what's going to happen with the 205, because has anybody looked at that? What the, the expansion of 205, what that's gonna do to the city?
Not from that planning, no.
Because
Not
a lot
from
of-
the planning company you're talking about.
If you look at 205 with the expansion, because right now it's 150 feet, is it from the center of 205?
Yes.
What happens when it goes to 6 lanes? Is that still 150 feet from the center?
Yes.
So then a lot of that property that was now today is a commercial property.
So
is
when
gonna be occupied.
they do the 4 lanes, they leave enough space in the middle, so if it goes to 6,
Yeah.
the 2 center.
They're already
Right.
planning for it to be the 6. It'll be done. But the way that the road is today, it's 150 feet off of the center of the road. That can be today can be business property. But as they expand the road, that actually expands into what is today the area for commercial property. So are we going to expand that and allow them to go even farther, or because that's somebody's property,
Right.
or do we do the economic? Do we take a look at that and say, okay, well maybe this is the time to change the comprehensive building plan and take that away from those areas? I don't know. Those are things that we need to take a look at. It. One way maybe to have the city council ask whoever is our city engineers to take a look at that. What's
Right.
going on with the road expansion and what that's going to do to the way that our comprehensive building plan is and the city's infrastructure, and to make recommendations as to where would be the most logical place to put a city center if we were going to have one.
Right.
I have seen towns that have had, in their building plan, maybe, place number 1, alternate place, and then they just kind of see whoever
That
comes
makes sense,
first, maybe more than one place that maybe willing to accept some
Yeah.
sort of a development like that.
So I think that's part of what we're hearing is the need to sit down with the city planner, right, and understand land use map, understand existing zoning, where they're right, so we can start identifying where there are, we can get back, before we get that far, understand what ground truth is today. So the next step would be understand what vision you want to build for the future, and then get to what changes need to be made, specific changes. Right? You can't just jump to change. I mean, in the way, again, it's part of economic development is always about getting the community bought into the process.
Well, I like that about having the city planner come in and tell us what the current structure is, and then take that and add the vision of the city council, and then put that into a survey and then send that out to people and say, okay, here's the way the current is, what's going to happen with the road infrastructure going through is how that's going to change that. Because of that change, the city has decided that we want to do this, and see if the city population is behind you. If they are, that'll make it very easy to go through the planning and zoning commission to get those changes, because you won't have the citizens fighting against you, they'd be for you.
Right.
And then get that changed, and then you could go forward with your decision and the
I
direction.
also think an education session like that would be very beneficial if the Planning and Zoning Commission was included in that.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that
And as many
planning,
citizens that want to.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So,
no, I mean, it's clear, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
many
the-
people
that's-
was-
I mean, there are several cities, right, try to look at smaller cities that develop some plan, and they typically, build envision, what's the one? Anyway, I wrote it down. Imagine McClendon Chisholm 2030, right? So it's a vision document. It's what does, what do we imagine McClendon Chisholm would be in 2030? So it's 10 years down the road. What would it look like?
It's a
right?
starting
So
point.
instead of starting, because the one in industry, what we learned was if you start with where you are today and just start planning out, it becomes a serial plan. As opposed to, I'm going to plan, I'm going to start with the end state, and I'm going to start back planning.
that's the way you do it, for sure.
To figure out how to move forward, as opposed to, because otherwise you get very serial development, which is 90% of the way the United States was created is here we are today, here we are tomorrow, you know, and it moves along. And then you have some disruption that takes place, you know, and now it doesn't feel as good, which is why you you'll go by and see these dinosaur artifacts that you see in cities where there were too many businesses that failed, not properly planned, and now you have, you know, malls are a prime example, right, of you know, and now you're trying to fix, you know, how do I fix this problem that was created for lack of a vision 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever the date is.
Because some are still thriving and some are out of business.
Yeah, I mean, the point being they get, you know, and you've gone through that in, you know, cities, and I don't want to point any out regionally that, you know, but I'm sure we all could come up with an idea of where they are, and you go by and you look at this, you know, little strip mall, and you go, oh man, don't want one of those, you know, when you have a lot of vacancies, and it's just, it doesn't fit where what you want the vision of the city to be for. The beauty is we have a blank slate.
It's a really good example of that. In Georgia, called Serenbe, Serembe, and it's a development master plan, but they're going very slowly on purpose. And the whole point, they're kind of creating like I'm not saying this is BS, but like a model of an English village. You know, that you have your farmers, you have your retailers, you have just this whole kind of cohesive, standalone-ish thing, and it's really pretty cool. But it's worth looking at if you've seen the way they're doing that.
Yeah.
How do you spell
Serenbe.
That's a more rural place, because Las Colinas is a master planned city too, and they have their own monorail, right?
Well, yeah, and when that was first built, it was out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, canals and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the canals and, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure it seemed crazy to some people at the time. Why would you build these huge offices out here?
Right, yeah. Well, they want people to live and work there, right?
Yeah.
So the commute was the monorail and, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I think we're in a really advantageous position from that
Yes, we are.
standpoint.
Yeah, especially with the main artery coming right through our town, and then the plan for 17 to be on the south of our town. I mean, that's some odd years away, but that's going to be close enough. So we know that there's going to be growth in this area.
Right.
It's going to be substantial growth.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, what kind do we want right here in this little pocket? You know, is I'm sure it's a matter of not too many years, but we can drive in any direction, and it's going to be just like driving through Plano or something. It's neighborhood entrance after neighborhood entrance. We don't want that here, but we could benefit from that.
And it could be that like some of which is currently like PJ land, agricultural land areas where they're like along 205 where today they have the business opportunities, where if for the right amount of money, like you said, there could be neighborhoods that are compatible with our desires for the 1.5 acres or more. And there's plenty of property along through here. And eventually you'll see something that's going to happen. The pressure for housing is a big one, and developers offer landowners enough money. I think that they'll go that direction. And the question for us is how do we set up the right infrastructure so we are ahead of it and planning for that instead of it just happening ad hoc around us.
Yeah, and if those, like I think you're saying, if that strip, say, stayed there, and then there were neighborhoods behind it, and each entrance had a feel, a retail feel to it, that it's not just strip malls with an entrance in between it. There's some bigger plan, bigger vision of how that could all incorporate and be real kind of a cohesive, but they could transition, whenever you transition through, we just have one nice, smooth transition.
Well, I think so. This again highlights your comment just now. Highlights the importance of P&Z. Is the relationship that needs to exist between them and us, and moving forward. Because again, we're not the housing authority. We're not going to be. We shouldn't be working neighborhoods. That's somebody else does that, right? But obviously, we want to work together.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, is everyone working, it all fitting together in the end, right? That will make it work. So we don't get up like one of those cities, or even 276, I think is kind of the example that gets used a lot, that we don't want to be. Just
No,
one.
don't want a spaceship.
I don't live on 276 anymore for a reason.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Yeah.
They fixed that station.
Well, I was gonna say.
Yeah, the spaceship is nice.
Fix the spaceship up, but.
It's a landmark.
Yeah, I had to look up and see what it was. It was, it's supposed to be homes. Right?
Yeah, there's actually a number of them around the nation, around the country,
Really? Oh.
where they were, conceptually, there's the with those domes. Geodesic
Yeah,
dome.
I've been in some of those down in Ellis County because we used to run ambulances down there, and they're neat. I mean, they're tiny, obviously, but
It's like Buckmeister Fuller, right? He was the one that did all the geodesic dome and stuff. It's supposed to be a really strong structure,
oh yeah,
right?
it's the
So,
strongest
Yeah,
for nature.
right, yeah. But they are a little odd looking.
So I agree completely about having the planner and P and Z. How hard would that be to coordinate the P and Z members with our meeting? Do you think? You know, like the Tuesday before.
I mean, obviously, trying to get a bunch of people that have jobs,
Right.
But the folks that are on the P and Z now, I mean, we are personally, I think that they would take the time for some education. They seem to be dedicated. They're dedicated.
Interested, dedicated,
And they
very
want to do
interested
the
in
right
community and
thing.
What's going on?
But we just, some education would be very welcome.
I hear two questions in here, right? There's the working together initially to get, jointly educated.
Yeah.
And, get ourselves collectively smarter. Then there's the structural, longer term structural. I would like to see the chair of the P and Z sit on this body as just,
Yeah, so that we're not.
statutory. So exactly. So there's complete involvement, and you're not searching for answers. That becomes that long term. So when 30 years from now, hypothetically, we're not in these roles.
But they always have,
But they
That's a
relate,
fixed
build that
position,
relationship
yeah.
between those two bodies now.
or at
Is
least.
there ever a danger of having too much of the P and Z involved in this committee?
Well, I'm nervous about that, and I'm nervous about too much council involved in this committee. So I think and I've expressed all those.
Yeah, and just so you know, I don't intend to be actually involved in this. I mean, this.
Well, I think,
I mean, on a meeting by meeting basis, it certainly mean maybe sitting in, but not as a.
well, and you'll see, and again, my idea is only not, and certainly not the end state answer, just a point of discussion, starting point for discussion would be to have a city council member be a liaison to this committee.
Correct.
Planning and zoning chair on this committee, and then the committee itself, we structure and organize. Now, in an ideal world, we would have enough people to populate all these different organizations. In an ideal world, if we don't have enough to populate all of them, then there's going to be some cross-pollination, right? It's going to take place, which is okay. But I'm just, that way you have it up and structurally up and running that way, and we get it. It's big on the. That way, there's no questions by the citizens. Citizens, it's to open up complete transparency, so it's governed this way. It's established in the city code that way. Here's who's on it. There's no questions.
And I agree, setting up the structure is a good point, and I do think it needs to be specified what the council member's role is as a liaison. And not someone driving an advisory panel that then is going to recommend.
That's the part I
Yeah,
get nervous about is where council will then structure the outcome the way it wants to through the body.
Or just ignore, completely.
Or
yeah, right.
the other
So,
opposite, as opposed to more of a collaboration.
agreed. So, getting this structure, sure there are examples of that, that would be easy to
Yeah,
start.
like I said, I just sort of penned out some basic one. If we go away, think about that, do our own research. I mean, Melanie's going to add value, Jim's going to add value, Dan's going to add value, and, in their research and say, well, maybe we do it this way, and then we come back together and create the organization.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Lisa certainly would.
I'm a little concerned about the timing of it, and I think you're biting off an awful lot, and not that you can't do it, but
No.
with a comp plan, it usually takes a planner months and months, and usually.
I'm not even before we get to the conference.
Right, I realize it's just part of it, but, usually there are workshops and lots of citizen input, and it may take 6 months to even just do a comp plan. So starting with more of a strategic outlook first, before you even get that far, we're looking at, possibly, a 2-year period maybe to get all this accomplished. And my concern in the meantime is I have people that knock on the door.
Right.
And what do I do with them in the meantime? Because right now, I have a big red strip of zoning that says we
Right.
welcome general business, but it doesn't really feel that way. So, and I don't care which direction the city goes, I'll support it no matter what. But the problem is, what do you do kind of in the meantime?
Well, that's why I said, if structure, if we have the structure, then it would give you, it's a resource that you could utilize. Again, Dan comes in with business A, and you turn to a subcommittee on that panel and say, what's your thoughts? And then we can help.
Sometimes she's getting these things so quickly
Yeah.
that they come right to the council. Yeah, because, right, the developer,
Well, we have to act some
Go to
timing
PNC.
on applications when they
Right.
come.
Flat applications in particular that
Yeah.
count the PNCCs and eventually council rules on, those I have to be 30 days, and then you can't go longer than that. The zoning could take a little longer,
right,
but at some point you do have to kind of act on them.
unless I'm not saying we do, but the moratorium can always happen to give ourselves 6 months or something to try to figure something out. Which you may miss.
That'd be a council decision.
Right, and that's something that, it gives you some time, but it also shuts people down in the meantime, that it could be a missed opportunity, so you gotta take both sides of that.
No, I know Jim experienced this in the military as well, so I was always amazed at how we couldn't go fast enough to get something, to do something,
Oh, yeah.
and then you would be more than willing to spend three times the amount to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? You go
Right.
fast.
Yeah, we don't
Sometimes
want that.
going
Yeah.
slower is better to
Well,
achieve.
keeping that long-term vision beyond this council, this mayor, this committee, this open land, set it up for long-term success. That's, and I think establishing some kind of frequent citizen feedback, and that could be a subcommittee or just a responsibility of someone on the committee to keep the outreach going and to keep it in little digestible chunks, so whenever people see them come through, that they know, okay, I'm not buying into this for 20 minutes. I just need to answer a couple questions real quick.
Well, I think that the survey could be one of the things that can help you out, because if you're getting pressure now, what do the citizens want? If the citizens are saying, no, we don't necessarily want to have even though it's currently zoned for economic along all of 205, and the citizenry doesn't want that, then it kind of gives you the ammunition to say, okay, yeah, let's put a moratorium, let's put a slowdown on this, way, while we look at how we might redo our planning and zoning policies and change things. So anyway, that may be one of the first things they do. What your citizens desire.
Yeah, I agree. But it's so much. There's a lot we need to find out, right? And Lisa and I were talking earlier with that zone of retail right now, those landowners, if you come back and say we're turning it back to agriculture or whatever, they're probably not going to be thrilled about that because we just cost them some money.
Like I said, that's not necessarily so. If our area, like I said, 205 takes out a lot of that area that would have been their area that was currently platted to be able to put you may not be able to, no longer be able to put a business there.
On that line.
And so then you go back and say, okay, yeah, unless we go back and rezone it, you're not going to go
That'd be
ahead.
the cleanest
Yeah.
solution to that.
That's why I
I'll
said,
have to look to see how that's worded. I want to say that there might be a provision in there because they knew that was going to expand that keeps it at, it's actually, the red part I think is 350 feet deep on each side. So the right of way for 205 is 150, but
And it moves that.
I think there might be something in there that allows it to do that. So I'll have to check
Could
on
you?
that.
Yeah.
Well,
Because that would definitely, it would actually push that farther into those people's property, into the,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's, they may not be knowing that now, that, hey, you realize that where the boundary used to be here for that, what you thought you were gonna sell is now farther in, well, that may be where your house is or something like that. They may, oh,
Right.
wait a minute, it
Yeah.
changes everything.
But in the meantime, you know, if somebody comes in here, and I know we talked about a particular store that nobody wanted, and I understand why. But if they had met the size requirement of the building, I couldn't have stopped them.
Really?
You can't keep someone out because you don't like their name or their type of business.
Right.
If they currently meet general business zoning, which includes certain types of uses, including retail, and that would be kind of a retail use, you can't keep them out because of the type of store. And because of new legislation,
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot we can't control
You can't
anymore.
control it.
As far as
The
building
The state
status.
really stuck it to towns.
That's a separate discussion, but I've had that conversation with Senator Hall and with Representative
I mean,
Hall.
I'm hoping it'll go away in 2 years because I think they're going to realize what damage.
Well, I think now they're beginning to realize, they've gotten feedback, I know that. But Senator Hall was very open, and I believe Representative Holland would be as well, to work with, because what they were trying to do is in all cases, right, they're trying to stop an issue that was elsewhere. And when I explained to him the uniqueness of McLean and Chisholm, sort of where we are in our journey, you know, that was not their intent. So, you know, as with all things, right, the pendulum swings back and forth. I think he's willing to, or my impression was he was willing to work, and that's obviously for the city to engage. But again, this comes to the advisory role we have to council, to the mayor, to the city administrator.
Well, planned developments do give us some leeway around that stuff. And uniform business restrictions, which used to exist to prevent certain types of companies coming in, and it would ultimately be any chain, really, because if you had a certain menu, a certain sign, a certain uniform, whatever, you could say, you can't come in our city, and they turn that over. You can't do that anymore. So I think planned developments are the way for a city to plan for its own future, you know, and not just be at the whim of whoever sells land and comes in and builds. But ultimately, we are in a free market, so it's you have to play both. You know, the landowners have that right, and they should. But you know, with the state taking away some of the rules, you put up whatever you want, metal buildings. Yeah, it's ends up devaluing people's property, homeowners, and that type of thing as well. So it's,
The one way I can control that is with the development agreement.
you can't, yeah.
Because it's
Oh, that's, yeah,
contractual.
I was saying planned development agreements.
Well, no.
Well, plan development zoning, but I'm just meaning like the aesthetics. There are some things we can control, but we have to do them outside of zoning.
Right.
So for the plan development, there's a negotiation with the developer, and you give me this, and you know, masonry or whatever it is that we want, and then you have to give them a little bit of what they want. So that's.
On the positive side of free enterprise, business owners want to have successful businesses.
Yeah.
So they're going to
We want to be
create,
good partners.
they're going to try to create the right atmosphere, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
Even Dollar General was saying that they would try to work with us on the aesthetics.
they're not going to come
well,
in.
and the guy we were talking to didn't really have that. I don't think that power.
Well, I don't
No,
know.
they were trying to get a deal through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to read, that's always the pressure.
Yeah.
Right, is the end state there.
Hmm.
But I think there's ways to, I think business owners want to be profitable, right? In terms of business, and you want to be profitable.
They want to, get along with the community and that kind of
There's,
thing.
look at the restaurants in downtown Rockville, I mean, they're building to the clientele.
Oh, they're killing it. They're doing great.
And they're
Yeah.
doing good job.
And even those, the boutiques, there's always an ongoing shakeout, but the ones that have been there for a long time now. And most of them survived the downtown
Surprisingly,
reconstruction.
some that I would think never would have been able to sustain themselves in a business. It just befuddles me, you know, why they were able to.
Well, I was going to a lot of downtown meetings at the time of the renovation down there, and they were struggling because sometimes their whole sidewalk would be closed off. So their stores just essentially shut down. And they survived. I don't really know how. You know, they were trying to come up with marketing ideas and, scare on the square, whatever, little things like that. But
Well, the city helped.
The city did.
The city helped a lot in putting events together that drew people down there despite, you know, they got the Chamber of Commerce involved to also help support local, you know, that kind of thing. So it takes a team,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
They pulled together.
The same thing's going, and I don't know how much it's going to impact us, but there's a lot of conversation starting now about, I'm on the board for the chamber, and we're trying to figure out ways to, when the construction of 30 comes along, there's going to be casualties. Okay, the big box stores, they're going to survive. You know, they're going to forecast for downturn in those few years and whatever. The mom and pops, we're trying to figure out what we can do to help them survive this, because people aren't going to get off if it's a hassle to get off. They're just going to blow on through the Roy City and get their gas or whatever. So,
Well, I think you'll see there's 205's going to have the same.
and it's exactly the same thing you
So
guys were just talking about.
you work with, there's ways to work timing.
Yeah.
And the chamber is instrumental in that as well as working with the county. I mean, the county,
And you know that
road
the
consortiums.
Rockwall Chamber is our chamber also.
Right. Yes.
And so there's a lot of resources there, you know, when it comes time, there's resources there that we can maybe call on for idea, I don't know, whatever.
The last year we went down to Ennis, Texas, and they had the Bluebonnet Festival. And one of the things I noticed there, they were doing a lot of construction in the middle of downtown, and there were whole streets of closed-up businesses because they were working on the infrastructure. And it's pretty hard to keep a business open if people can't get to your business. And so that's a difficult thing. And that's one of the reasons why I caution about putting anything before 205 gets done, because we don't really know what the impact's going to be during that time that they're doing construction of 205. They're going from 2-lane road to basically a 6-lane, that kind of space. So it's going to be pretty damaging, especially for any new businesses.
Maybe that's your natural moratorium we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you live through the Ridge Road development, right?
Yeah.
Having lived over on that side of Heath, Ridge Road was a mess.
On that though, one of the things that was neat things, they had that Bluebonnet Festival there, which drew a substantial number of people. Well, Rockwell's a pretty big city, and they don't have the open spaces like we do, but if they could pull something into our county where we could draw people, because that's what it is. People went to Ennis, they had like a little festival, a street festival, and a bunch of things, but when you wanted to go see the Bluebonnets, you had to go drive through the country to go see the Bluebonnets. And so that was kind of an interesting thing that, they're drawing people, a lot of people there spending the money in town, but then they were also driving around out there on the countryside too, which if we had the right infrastructure, we could bring people out here to our place.
So, when you get ready, this is pretty far down the road, but what's really growing in Rockwall now, there's a huge amount of what they call hot funds, hotel occupancy tax funds. And if you're putting on an event that puts beds and what do they call it? Heads and beds, then you can ask for funding to help put on that event, right? So
When that tax can only be spent on promoting.
that's correct. It's by law, it has to be spent that way.
We've used many organizations that use those hot funds.
Yeah, so that's pretty far down the road. We got to build it first, but
But I mean, those are the things that we should. In our vision, as what Mark was talking about, we need to think about what are the possible things that we can do, because I think they're pretty much unlimited, but we've got to start in the beginning and to have a vision and then set up the right infrastructure, because if we don't, what's gonna happen is somebody's gonna come in and they're gonna force our hand and they're gonna put something, and they may put something in the wrong location. You may be stuck.
Right.
That could impact what our future.
Oh, you get one of those, I just, get one of those dinosaurs and you just can't get rid of it. But
Well, the worst part would be if it failed, and then you have this.
well, that's a failed business, or it's worse, it's rapid turnover, you know, and you just.
So what's our first official step?
It's not that many, is it?
We accomplished something here.
Well, I think we, so, yeah, I think the structure, that's why I would like to see us come together at the next meeting and do it quickly, right? It shouldn't take too long, you know, to get together and come together and structure ourselves the way we want to be structured, right? So then the next, my opinion, again, the next step after that is we've talked a lot about the visioning, right? So we need to start the plan to get to that vision statement, whatever that looks like. I don't, you know, is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? Is it, you know, but what, and then what steps to get there?
So do we need anything from city council to make this, you know, official for what we're doing, or is that already in place, or?
Well, if you want an ordinance firmly establishing the committee, then we'll need to write something up and bring it to council once you decide what those things are.
Yeah, that'd be the kind of the starting point, I mean.
I would think we would want to have, we would say, go to council and say, here's how specifically we want to be structured. And here's, you know, and based on Lisa's counsel and presumably city attorney, here's how, what it looks like. Here's what it looks like in order, you know, to embody that. Here's what it looks like in ordinance.
If it helps, I could come up with maybe like a template where you all could sort of fill in the blanks on some things, you know, number of people.
That would be good.
you know.
Something to just say, you know, I just want to feel like we accomplished.
No, I think that's good. And
In the meantime, you still have an ad hoc committee, so work. You know, it doesn't have to wait for that.
no,
I mean,
no, we can start and then start, I guess the other piece is to start, because we've all said, I think, the word vision. We all want to have a common viewpoint, right? So how do we get to that? How do you build that? What?
And we know it involves citizen.
I know, I mean, everybody here, I think, has an individual idea of how to get there, or ideas, you know, let's pull them together and create the plan.
But it should be reflective of what the citizens want.
Absolutely.
Because we're so ingrained in terms of what our concept of what's going to be great for the city is, that your vision gets narrowed so much. And I'm the first to testify to that, because I made some mistakes here already in with P&Z. But that being said, keep an open mind on all this.
Well, citizens are really a resource. I mean, people get so much more information, ideas, just by asking.
Yeah.
When we were at the council retreat or budget workshop, whatever we're calling it, I showed an example of a strategic plan. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Might want to bring that back just as an example.
Whenever we talked about getting the planning company to
So I think
take a look at that.
so the strategic plan was a lot less expensive than the comp plan. It's sort of a starting place before you even get to the comp plan. Of long-term
You
things.
can spend a lot of money on a strategic plan, right?
I think it was
Whole
about
cottage industry out there.
It's about 4,000. It wasn't
Yeah,
nearly as much
it's
as
a
I
lot of
thought.
money. We can, I would argue that we can create, so strategic plans are living and breathing things. Right? They shouldn't, build it and it goes on a shelf, and the desire, if you're, my experience is if you got to build something that somebody's going to read and it's actionable. So if it's more than 10, 15 pages, right? I know you've seen the same thing. It gets to be too long, because it's supposed to just be that compass, if you will, right? Basic map and a compass to allow you to move forward, because it's the same, and it should have mutual benefit then from us, planning and zoning, board of adjustments, city council, right? Everybody, and the citizens, everybody's to be able to look at it. And it's because a comprehensive plan tends to be very structurally more tactical, if you will. This road, this width, here's the land use map, etc. That appropriately needs to be. Because that's what the developer's going to use.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you've got a good vision, a good strategic plan, then the developer goes, okay, now I sort of know where we're going. Because I thought Jim brought up a point that made me think. No. So is it hard to envision in 10 years we would have a country fair kind of event? Is that something that would be, I think everybody here would say, yeah, makes, you know.
Tractor racing.
Right. Yeah, whatever it is. Throwing, you know,
I
all
think
the
people
important
wouldn't
things.
come.
But the point is, you know, something that's the character, shared character of the city, and helps you define what the city's going to look like, right?
Yeah. Even the fall festival that we've started will grow over time.
Yeah.
I mean, those things take time to.
Hard. The first one's the hardest.
Yeah.
You get after a while, you just
Keep doing it. I mean, when my dad was mayor of Pantego, he started Pantego Fest, and 30, 40 years later, I hear him mention, like on the radio at big Dallas station, Pantego Fest is going on. I'm like, are you kidding? Because that was like everyone bringing food and.
Everything starts somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, the Richardson Wildflower Festival
Oh, yeah.
started in a park, and the wildflowers didn't bloom, so they actually had to bring in flowers and pots and put mulch around them.
Oh, wow.
And now it's a big urban festival.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Started
that would
30 years
be
ago, so
an
it's
example. That's just an example of where
just
I
have to
think
keep
we want
plugging
to
away.
go.
You know, we're down in Dallas, beginning part of last year, and they have an art fair down there. That drew a tremendous number of people over a weekend to that
Oh, yeah.
event.
That'd be
The
great.
other thing you could do is you have massive amounts of land here. If you could probably convince some developer, or not developer, but owner, to put balloons up. You know, the big launch balloons that
Yeah.
are coming from San Diego. We had those off the coast up at Temecula area in the wine country.
Yeah.
And it was a great draw. I mean, they had that festival down in, I think it's in Santa Fe, down in New Mexico.
Yeah.
someplace. And it,
Yeah, one up here north and,
Yeah.
and it draws tremendous numbers of people.
Gallery poetry.
Yeah. It's yeah.
You just have to start, thinking about these
Well, we need
things.
the venue for.
Have our own artist here.
Yeah,
That is
have
after
a
all
start,
already.
have a start area right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I'm not, so like,
Yeah.
my point being, if we have this, you know, sort of start, what does it mean to be rural? What's that look and feel?
Yeah.
And you know, because a lot of Western towns in the United States became rural. I mean, we're rural because the town just basically became the center of commerce for all the surrounding agricultural activities or mining or whatever was going on. We're sort of trying to envision something that's not the center of commerce here, per se. Will have commerce, but and maintains that. So more of the, you know, emphasize the rural side of that.
Yeah. The farmer's market type thing.
Desirability of that
I mean,
ruralness,
this,
rural beautiful.
I mean,
And that could be definitely, because I always said before about that, that could be the draw. As all the areas around us become more and more urbanized,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
people like to escape that urban environment to get somewhere where it's nice and open spaces, and, you know, that could be to create the opportunity for McLendon Chisholm to be the uniqueness that
Right.
the rest of the area is not.
Which is deliberate open space development
Deliberate,
instead of
yes.
just
exactly.
putting our heads in the sand and
Well,
hoping that we keep horses around.
Exactly.
You know?
And
We're
so,
just saying
so
it.
we've talked about 205 and we're worried, and it's more, tends to have more of a negative connotation. Put a positive connotation on it. Yet, how many people in McLendon Chisholm now?
Oh, 3,200.
3,200, so about 3,200 folks once 205 construction starts. Do I want to try to drive into Rockwall and go to the farmer's market? If there was one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally.
So you can use it to your benefit. It
That's
doesn't
true.
have to be negative connotation. You can
No.
start to develop those themes now.
In reality, you might see the farmer's market and want to be here instead of.
There you go.
Yeah,
There
exactly.
you go,
They
right?
started one last year at Heath,
Yeah, they do.
That's right.
Later.
and they ended it with Ray Wiley Hubbard playing at the last day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, got a lot of people coming.
You
So if I was to try to put a timeline down for this committee right here, what would be, I guess this initial meeting is the first thing on this timeline. What's the next thing on this timeline?
Well, do we want to meet in,
Is there any kind of
I think we want to get together quickly and
Yeah.
get the structure going. So we go back to council and say, here's what we want to look like. And get their seal of approval for whatever it takes.
so 2 weeks from now will be the week before, no, I don't know if that's true or not. We were talking about having these a week before a council meeting, so that we have time to take action in here.
Right.
Well, that's something we need to decide, what do people want to do, and does it change early on, do we want to have twice a month?
Yeah.
And then as it becomes appropriate, have them once a month, but, you know.
So you're talking about like the 3rd of February, get together.
So the next meeting, we're gonna
Yeah.
just, we're
And
gonna
the
try.
reason to do it that way was if you want to take it, so let's hypothetically say we come out of the next meeting with a structure and say, here's what we're going to propose to council. It's going to be how big, how many,
Getting it on the agenda.
it has to go through the city administrator to get onto the agenda,
Right.
right, to be enacted, subject to our rule to get it to council, which means the 3rd would be, with a council meeting on the 11th, that would translate into the work Lisa has the ability to
Right.
shape that and get it into the appropriate documentation for the council meeting.
So the 3rd is, you're saying that.
So I would,
Say
yeah, the
before,
3rd would be
then the
logical,
10th would be-
the 3rd or 4th, I mean Monday or Tuesday, whatever, I'm sorry, it's just week of the 3rd, Tuesday is probably, the 4th is fine.
So is Lisa, or are we going to, you offered to send us something to kind of help us all put in our thoughts of what the structure
I
looks
can kind of
like.
give you a template,
Yeah.
and
Right.
you all can fill in the blanks.
So
and
that
you
when
can
we
add
come
to
back
it.
at that next meeting, I'm not trying to figure it out that night.
Right.
Right.
Kind of,
Yeah,
Right.
you know.
so can you know where that is? I'm like, you do it tomorrow?
I could find something.
Like you didn't have
Yeah.
anything else to do.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you kind of talked about, how many people and representation from different.
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
groups and how often you want to meet and what your goals and outcomes,
Yeah.
what your
What the point of the committee is, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
The
just
role of the
size.
council.
Yeah, just the size of it. I mean, that's why I provided
Yeah.
that. I mean, just to give you some, that's a straw man. It's not as-
position
It's
is
good,
that
sir.
we're representing the citizenry to provide the city council with some input.
Right.
What the direction will be.
I need to take a break. If anybody else needs to, we can all take a break. I'll be right back.
So does Monday versus Tuesday matter?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said the 3rd. I just-
Well, no, either one, I mean, what is today?
Today is
Today is Monday,
Today is
yeah.
Yeah, right.
Mondays work better for me, but
Mondays
don't hold
Okay,
that.
Mondays are good.
Yeah, I find Monday, I mean,
When you were having them before the council meeting, it was really hard for me to
I know,
be here.
that was
yeah, if it's,
different idea.
does Monday get okay for you?
The
3rd.
Monday,
Monday's okay with me too.
Monday is fine.
Monday the 3rd,
But
6:30.
she's here tonight, so.
We'll make sure with her when she gets back in. And then I'll follow up with Robert to see.
Yeah, Robert, because, I mean, if he needs to be in here.
And Mr. Donahue.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if he'll be okay for the 3rd, but he's generally makes himself available.
well, and that's the other thing, is the size, the size and composition, it's, what, how big's the bread basket,
Yeah. So with an ordinance, would you have to have quorum and all that? Or,
If you make it a formal committee, I don't know if you'd have to have a quorum for a committee, but you have to post it, and
Right.
somebody would need to take minutes.
Well, I think that's important.
So you can keep up
I'm
with
not
the
a fan of
progress.
ad hoc committees because they tend to work more in the shadows, not because they're trying to hide something, it's just because there's no,
One of the things you can put in that ordinance or the structure is how many does it make to make a meeting.
yeah.
right,
So,
they,
so
yeah,
you
maybe
can
not a
have
quorum, just, if
that.
it's
You
2
can decide for
people.
yourself if
Yeah.
it's 5 or whatever to
Mhm.
meet.
Okay.
And not to hit on anybody, but when we were a panel, we had really good ideas, but nothing ever became of those.
Right.
So I think that we really need some structure so that we can actually get some things accomplished, because it's been literally almost a year. And, you know, if you look at it from that perspective, if we had enacted some of the things that we were talking about, we would have been much farther along. Lisa might not be, being pressured by some of the business.
Well, I think, we want to be a resource for her to use.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have your input too.
I'd love to join.
Well, either you or we need somebody.
So yeah, we need a chairman, we'll need officers.
A chairman, and all that's easy though.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm stepped out just for a second because I thought it's very important to understand a couple of things. First of all, this committee has been meeting for over a year, and they are just now getting started to decide, okay, what are we going to do? And they're talking about, we need to create a vision. We need to, I'll see if I can get the document that Mark Kippett put together, but we'll see about that. So I'll get back to the meeting.
6:30 work better for you with your children?
Oh.
Probably, because I have to get her there. I can get her there like 6, and then I can get her by 6:30. It's in Forney.
6:30 is fine.
For the next meeting, as an ad hoc, you don't have to post this, do you want to?
Sure.
I don't think there's anything that says you can't. I mean, do you want to just post at your meeting and you can have a general topic of?
I'm all about transparency.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
And there's no reason not to.
And you might get some people from the public joining in and wanting to listen.
So is that something you're talking on the website, or does it cost money?
No, just like a
Maybe we
post.
can even have suggestions.
Not
Suggestions.
a newspaper, where you're not spending money,
Come
okay.
to the audience, and they're taking an interest because they're seeing these businesses come in that they may not want, but there's going to be a business that comes in here that they do want, and they want a voice in it.
You won't be as fancy as a council agenda.
Right.
And I think
Something just kind of.
And, transparency, it's over here.
And as we progress, we'll get
No,
more.
I'm all, it's.
Okay, so template, we have a meeting, we'll have feedback.
Okay.
Good.
No,
And then just
come
any
armed-
other ideas?
Come armed with the idea, structural ideas, and you're going to stuff. And see, if we just do that at the meeting, we'll have made a big step forward in my mind.
Absolutely.
It's going to be slow progress, but, every step.
Well, I mean, then it's, okay, now you can start giving some tasks.
Well, that's, once we have
to
tasks,
do
I
stuff,
think
then
everyone's lean forward type person, so we're gonna start knocking those things in quickly. Or at least making tangible progress.
The flip side of making it formal and
Exactly.
having a committee that was, you have to watch after that opens meeting. So at
Okay.
that point, you'll have to watch how many of you are together, because you don't want a quorum, so
Right, that's a good point.
you're not quite
Even
there
if,
yet.
even if we don't have power to vote and enact.
It depends on what you call it when you write out the ordinance.
Okay,
Right.
well, you'll advise us, or you and Hala on that. Okay,
Good job.
all right. Very good.
All right.
This is
Good
good
first
start.
First step.
And
And there's a TML. We have everybody's email address, right?
yes,
Yours?
Melanie's was
That's right, I think.
I think it should be.
We have it now.
We use the most recent one you had, right, for Melanie? Is that good?
yes.
Yeah, Lisa.
It's Melody O, right?
Yeah, you always get to me.
Because
yeah.
there's a TML document for economic development planning. Created some TML documents, large number of pages, I won't say name. But if you were to, I downloaded it. So if you email it to you, you can go find it.
If you just send us the link, email us the link.
I can email you the link as
That's
well.
easier that way. You know, we good documents. and-
Yeah, I've already downloaded it, so it's already as a PDF. So anyway,
Yeah, if you had faster internet, you'd do it really quick.
if I had that, yeah.
Did you get Sunlight?
I did.
We were talking about that.
Yeah, mine, been disappointed. So.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, mine's been rock solid.
Well, are you? I'll talk.
All right.
I have Michael and Rick.
Sharing with you.
They're more techy than
I'll do so. Yeah.
When
I
I
was
go
wondering
to
if you
class
have that
speaking
late
test,
thing,
I'm
then
getting
maybe the one you
35.
see with the glasses.
Well, it's funny, I have, it's,
Thanks for the
Thank you.
Michael said,
Very helpful.
you're really taking the delivery
Oh, really?
because of any listed about letters and all that.
Inside.
sit at my
Inside.
inside, no, inside.
Really?
They're all about
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
It's a good thing.
I'll back in a minute.
I can read, I read.
No, Mexico, Mexico, to go to Dayton, Ohio.
They put in the airs.
Washington, it'll be a little bit cold back there in February, I guess, close to February, but yeah, it's gonna be nice there in the spring.
This next time, California,
And then I disabled their Wi-Fi and put in my hotspot just like that.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day? I think I've said something about that.
God made it this way.
Oh, is that right?
So you'll never achieve
Yeah,
more.
well,
Oh, you're gonna be out there just a couple days.
Just Friday.
Yeah.
Thursdays and Friday, stay there Saturday, and then Sunday. I don't
So,
know.
Not
so anyway,
Weather's
that's,
good.
so
It's
that's
bad
why
out there.
I see these results is in this city here.
Sometimes the weather out in California, in
You
February, I've been on golf courses and it's just like,
And then I put
it's
in
so
my
nice being out there because I'd be calling my sister back in New England.
You're fine, and I can read.
Freezing cold.
is a
You know, maybe like St. Louis was that one time you went up there and it was just frigid.
The other time, February.
So I can see.
February.
plugs into an Ethernet and plugs into a
I lived in Kansas City for 2 years, I told you. One year wasn't too bad, you know, we had snow, but the next year was terrible. Tons of snow.
The modem is
You don't know. Oh,
I
Kansas is
noticed that.
Playing all the.
in the modem.
It's more severe weather here, I think. Other than the tornadoes, because we used to get storms virtually every afternoon. We get thunderstorms and heavy rain during the summertime. We would get, you just knew the afternoon, here we're going to get a thunderstorm and rain. It didn't last that long, but we pretty dominant, you know, and
So if you turn.
not as much wind. In the winter time, you get a little bit of wind. In the summer, in the winter, in the spring. This place is really windy down here. It's much more flat. I've never been in a place that's windy down here. California's not windy.
It is, but it's at upper elevations, like when you're watching the airport, because we're on
Yeah.
the clouds, they're going,
They won't interfere.
But it's not a ground level, you know, so.
Yeah, I've
You
tried to
get some
email
Santa
them.
Ana's coming up, but that's seasonal, you know, and there's a reason for that, you know, once you get the temperature changes and all that, it shifts in, it's pretty limited, it's not so.
Yes, you're gonna need to take.
What's the thing is that,
Look at it in the map. It's
the only
gonna be
ones that
That's
go in
a
one
great
direction,
resource.
unless
Yeah,
there's a
there's a
more
lot
east.
of
But here, I mean,
So.
It doesn't make any difference.
during the day, it'll be 4 different directions. Like, how the heck is the wind coming?
And you get the shift all of a sudden, you gotta be kidding me, because you know, you're cutting the lawn, well, I'm cutting the line, right? Just in a time span, I'm cutting the line, I go up there with my blower, and I'm going, wait a minute, that thing was just going the other way, and it's blowing back on me, and it's just like.
Your neighbor's You're gonna get a venue for weddings, etc.
With the chapel there, yes, they're doing the chapel, and
That's an example.
Put in the paper.
there's
I don't know if there's any open
photographs of
seats,
each.
you know.
And it's short for
Now,
customers.
and I think they're over at the
And
farm.
then the other guy.
Then the password.
So if we had it here, we would have to go to the
I
farm.
don't know if
Or
there's an
even,
open seat to run.
It's on the bottom.
So we'll see.
That's what I'm saying. If I had the capital to do it, I would put part
And
of
then when you go in
What's that?
there, you can go in there.
Easiest thing is to wire this off.
You'll see the 2.4.
We'll play in best time, I get the sense. I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it.
Okay, so that's the end of that meeting, which really should surprise every citizen. You have a guy, Mark Kippett, who is a Pennsylvania liberal, coming in to basically dominate the meeting with his ideas, and there's no, I guess, should be of no surprise to anyone that anything Mark Kippett touches, in my opinion, is going to be tainted. Lots and lots of platitudes. I think that what I've got tonight and what we're seeing tonight is just a lot of examples of just more platitudes that we have from politically minded individuals. The whole beginning of the meeting was Mark Kippett just trying to wax prolific about all of the things that are just as obvious as the day is long. Hey, one of the things that I was expecting them to talk about is what about this $200,000 that we're about to give to a developer in taxpayer funds? Why are we doing that? Should we be doing that? Shouldn't that have been a topic of conversation? One of the things that Lisa Paloma said tonight that I agree with completely is that, hey, she's got people coming into her door now and they're wanting to do some things, and what does she tell them? And I think that's a very important thing, and I think that she needs direction, and this committee had nothing for her, and nor does the city council. And so that's, I think, the most important thing is that they need to get something done, and they need to move forward. So I'm going to turn this back on to that, and I will be talking with you tomorrow. The show is, I'm about to turn it off, so I hope you have a great night. Bunker Bob, we'll see you next time.